All right. So one concept we need to understand is working with Dynamesh. All right, and it's important that you understand what Dynamesh is and why we use it. All right. So to do this, I'm going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to go ahead in my tool palette and click on my swatch and open up the Sphere 3D. All right. You'll see it's loaded there. If I click and drag and go to Edit. All right, you can see there's our Sphere 3D. Now, this is just a primitive. This is not a actual sculptable geometry right now. All right, you'll see in the swatch right there, it just says Sphere 3D 1. All right, for us to make this a sculptable object, I need to make Polymesh 3D. All right, so I'm going to click on that, and when I do that, you'll see that the name of this tool here will change to PM3D. So let me go ahead and click on that. All right, and there it is, PM3D. All right, Polymesh. All right, so this now is a sculptable object. All right, now the one problem with this sort of Polymesh, this base primitive that we bring in from ZBrush here. All right, if we turn on our polyframe, you'll see that the polygons are not so evenly dispersed across the surface here. All right, they all come to a point right here at the peak. All right, and they're a little bit wider and bigger right here in the center. All right, so what happens here now with this is if I use my move brush, all right, and I start to pull out some of these polys, or some of the side right here. All right, you can see that as I pull this out, when I turn my polyframe on, those polygons there get really stretched. All right, and there's not much that we can do about that other than coming to our geometry tab and dividing our model. All right, so let me divide that model, and let me just refresh this. All right, and now you can see that I've got more geometry in here, but it's still very stretched. If I were to try and sculpt on that using some clay here, you can see that it really does not perform very well. All right. On the other side over here, it acts as it should, okay, because those polygons in this area are still evenly distributed. All right. But over here where they're pulled, it really just gives us really bad geometry. All right. Right here, especially on top. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. All right. So the only thing that we can do to resolve that with this style of sculpting is to divide our model. All right. And every time we divide our model, we get more polygons. You can see right here. I'll divide it again. All right. And now I can go in here with my clay tubes and I can probably sculpt a little bit, but you can still see it's very pulled and I'm not getting the results I am right here. All right. So this is a problem with the sort of standard style of sculpting inside of ZBrush. It's very workable. You can work around it. But with Dynamesh, which is relatively new to ZBrush, it gives us a whole new way of sculpting. All right. So let me go ahead and initialize up to Preferences, Initialize. Okay, we'll say yes. Remember that that just sort of clears our canvas for us. Okay, give it a second there. All right. So let's do this again. Let's go into our big swatch. We'll bring in a Sphere 3D. Click and drag. Come over to Edit. All right. We'll turn on our polyframe. You can see what we've got here. Same thing. All right. It's a Sphere 3D. Before we can do anything with one of those primitives, we have to make it a Polymesh 3D. All right. And again, you'll know it's a Polymesh if it says PM in front of the tool there. All right. So make Polymesh 3D, PM 3D. It's a Polymesh right here. All right. So what we want to do now is make this sphere a Dynamesh sphere. Okay, so we can come down to our geometry tab here, and if you scroll down, you'll see right here, you'll see Dynamesh, and we can open that up, and we've got a few buttons in here that control Dynamesh. All right, the big button here, Group, Polish, Project, and Blur. and one of the most important part of it right here, the resolution slider. All right. So let me go ahead and just slide this down a little bit lower. All right. And you should know that you can at any time adjust the resolution of your Dynamesh. All right. So I'm sliding this down. We'll say to 40. Okay. And I'm going to click this Dynamesh button. Now, when I click this, I want you to notice the distribution of geometry. Okay. So I'm going to click this, and there we go. All right. So you can see that now we don't have that pulling in the center. All right. What we have is relatively even distribution of polygons here. All right. It's not the prettiest. You can see that we've got some triangles in there. All right. That's not a big deal though. All right. But I do want to show you that's a resolution of 40. Let me Z back here and keep that resolution at 128 and hit Dynamesh. All right. And now you can see still we've got evenly distributed polygons. All right. We still have some odd little triangles and stuff, but it's not a big deal. But you can see how adjusting the resolution adjusts how much how many polygons you have on your sphere there. Okay. So let me Z back. All right. I am going to knock this down to a lower number. All right. We'll say 40 again. Hit enter, and then hit Dynamesh. All right, and there we go. All right. So now the cool thing about Dynamesh, just let me pull this away a bit here. I'm going to use my move brush again, and I'm just going to pull this out. Okay, and I'll pull it out over here as well. And I'll pull it out back here. All right. So you can see that we've really stretched a lot of this geometry. All right. But with Dynamesh, we can kind of fix that. All right. If we hold down Control and Marquee Select, all right, it will remesh it for us. You can see now that the distribution of polygons is relatively even throughout. Okay. I can smooth that out. All right. And I can continue to just pull on this here. Hold down Control, Marquee Select, and it'll redistribute the polygons again. So this is a great way of sculpting, a great way of concepting. If we're trying to figure something out, create interesting and unique shapes and forms. All right, we don't have to worry about the geometry so much anymore. We can just go ahead and start pushing and pulling. All right, and as our geometry starts getting a little bit stretched or pulled, we can hold down Control, Marquee Select, and remesh it. All right, and then we can go into it with any of our brushes, the Inflate brush, the Clay Tubes brush, anything that, and any of the other brushes that we have inside of ZBrush. See here, I can even inflate this to the point where that geometry is starting to get really stretched. All right, and again, if I hold down Control and Marquee Select, all right, it'll remesh it. All right, so this is what we're going to be doing for most of our sculpts. Is going to be using Dynamesh. All right, now fortunately, we don't have to always go through all these steps to get to a Dynamesh. All right, let me go ahead and initialize ZBrush again. All right, give it a second here. And right from our light box here, all right, from Project, you'll see that we've got several default Dynawax, default wax, Dynamesh, Dynamesh, Dynamesh. So we've got Dynamesh at 16 resolution, Dynamesh at 32, Dynamesh at 64 and 128. We've also got these Dynawax. Okay, you can see here Dynawax, which is really just a sphere with the wax modifier turned on. It's nothing really special. All right. So a lot of our sculpting will probably be starting with one of these Dynameshes that come inside of the light box right here. 16 might be a little bit low, but 32 is probably good, and 64 for sure. So let's go ahead and open up the 32, all right, just by double clicking on it. And right away you'll see that if we go into our geometry, all right, Dynamesh is already turned on. It's a resolution of 32 because remember, from here we chose the, right here, Dynamesh 32 has a resolution of 32. Now we can still change that at any time, okay? So let me hit comma. And if I turn on my polyframe, you'll see there's our Dynamesh polyframe. All right. If I wanted to up that resolution, I certainly could. All right, up that there, right there. Hold down Control and Marquee Select. All right. Now you'll notice that not much happened, and that's because you actually have to change the mesh. All right, before Dynamesh will happen, before you can remesh it. So I just use my move brush there and just kind of just jiggle the surface a little bit. Hold down Control, Marquee Select, and there you go. Now we have the higher resolution, okay? So I can go up and down in resolutions as needed. Typically, though, we start at a low resolution, all right, and work our way up to a higher resolution. All right, so that's just the very, very basics of Dynamesh. We're going to go into, in the next couple of videos, the different things that we can do with Dynamesh.